scenes unfold. As I travel on life's pathway, know not what the years may hold. As I ponder, home grows fonder, precious memories flood my soul. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold. Precious memories, unseen angels, sent from somewhere to my soul. How they linger ever near me, and the sacred past unfold. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold. Precious Father, loving Mother, fly across the lonely years, and old home scenes of my childhood in fond memory appear. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold. As I travel on life's pathway, know not what the years may hold. As I ponder, home grows fonder, precious memories flood my soul. Precious memories, how they linger, how they ever flood my soul. In the stillness of the midnight, precious sacred scenes unfold. Precious memories, sent from somewhere. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross, where the dearest and best for a world So I'll cherish the old rugged cross, till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross, and exchange it someday for a crown. Oh, that old rugged cross, so despised by the world, has a wondrous attraction for me. For the dear Lamb of God left his glory above, to bear it to dark Calvary. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross, till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross, and exchange it someday for a crown. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true, in shame and reproach gladly bear. Then he'll call me someday to my home far away, where his glory forever I'll share. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross, till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross, and exchange it someday for a crown. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to to sing God's praise than when we first begun. There's a name above all others, wonderful to hear, bringing hope and cheer, yes, hope and cheer. It's the lovely name of Jesus, evermore the same, what a lovely name, What a name, the name of Jesus.
Reaching higher
far
than the
brightest star.
Sweeter
the songs they sing in heaven.
Let the world
proclaim, what a lovely name. He'll return in clouds of glory. Saints of every race, shall behold his face, his loving face. With him into heaven's city, ever to acclaim, what a lovely name, What a name, the name of Jesus.
Reaching higher
far
than the brightest
star.
Sweeter
the songs they sing in heaven.
Let the world
proclaim, what a lovely name. Here among the shadows, living in a lonely land, strangers, we're a band of pilgrims on the move. Dangers burdened down with sorrows, and we're shunned on every hand. But we are looking for a city built above. Yes, we're looking here and there, looking for a city where we'll never die, never end up there with all the saints. Yes, with all the millions, we will never say goodbye. Say goodbye, no, never. Yes, and when we gather there, we'll meet Christ our Savior, and we know we'll meet friends and our loved ones. Now we pray thee quickly come, pray thee come, O Savior, come, O thee we call, all our hopes renew. In this land of dangers, we are going here and there, simply trusting in the blessed Savior's love. See, though we may be strangers, living in this world of care, always looking for a city built above. Yes, we're looking here and there, looking for a city where we'll never die, never end up there with all the saints. Yes, with all the millions, we will never say goodbye. Say goodbye, no, never. Yes, and when we gather there, we'll meet Christ our Savior, and we know we'll meet friends and our loved ones. Now we pray thee quickly come, pray thee come, O Savior, come, O thee we call, all our hopes renew. I am rolling, and my ways I am controlling. Soon I'll reach my home in heaven by and by. And when the tempters are so near me, I have Christ right here to cheer me. I am rolling in the sky. By and by, Lord, in the sky. Soon I'll reach my home in heaven by and by. Swiftly rolling by, yes, riding, riding high. I am rolling and rocking in the sky. I am riding, 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 and in him I am confiding. Soon I'll reach my home in heaven by and by. When the tempters are so near me, I have Christ right here to cheer me. I am riding, riding, riding in the sky. By and by, Lord, in the sky. Soon I'll reach my home in heaven by and by. Swiftly rolling by, yes, riding, riding high. I am rolling and rocking in the sky. I am rocking, 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 since my Lord has ceased a knocking. Soon I'll reach my home in heaven by and by. When the tempters are so near me, I have Christ right here to cheer me. I am rocking, rocking, rocking in the sky. By and by, Lord, in the sky. Soon I'll reach my home in heaven by and by. Swiftly rolling by, yes, riding, riding high. I am rolling and rocking in the sky. I am rocking in the sky. Oh, I'd like to go back to that old country church and to hear the songs of praise, how the people would sing. It would make the heavens ring at that old country church. Shall we gather at the river, the beautiful river? Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Oh, I'll never forget at that old country church how the glory of the Lord came down. It came down, and the children would smile as they shouted down the aisle of that old country church. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. Then on Sunday to see all my friends so dear to me at that old country church. When it came time for prayer, everybody would be there at that old country church. Leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Now the years have gone by, and so many have died at that old country church. But they're on the other shore, and they'll sing forevermore as they did at that old country church. I'm redeemed by love divine. Glory, glory, Christ is mine. All to him I now resign. I have been redeemed. I heard about a man one day who wasted not his time away. He prayed to God every morning, noon and night. He cared not for the king's decree, but trusted God to set him free. Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon and night. Oh, Daniel still served God while here upon this earth he tried. He prayed to God every morning, noon and night. He trusted his will, but trusted him who never fails. Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon and night. They cast him in the lion's den because he would not honor men. He prayed to God every morning, noon and night. Their jaws were locked, it made him shout, and God soon brought him safely out. Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon and night.
Oh, Daniel served the living God while here upon this earthly trial.
He prayed to God every morning, noon and night.
He cared not for the things of veil, but trusted who never fails.
Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon and night. Oh, brother, let us watch and pray like Daniel lived from day to day. He prayed to God every morning, noon and night. We too can gladly dare and do the things of God. He'll take us through. Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon and night.
Oh, Daniel served the living
God while
God
here
upon
he
this
trod. He prayed to God every morning, noon and night. He
cared not for the things of veil, but trusted who never fails.
Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon and night.
Oh, Daniel served the living
God while
God
here upon this earth he trod. He prayed to God every morning, noon and night. He cared not for the things of veil, but trusted who never fails. Oh, Daniel prayed every morning, noon and night. I am so happy while I travel on the bright road to glory land, and I am living so my life for Jesus will shine. I am rejoicing and I'm singing, traveling with an angel band. There is no sorrow in my heart, for Jesus is mine.
Shouting and praising, voices upraising, glory divine.
Joy that's so divine.
Going to glory, telling the story, Jesus is
He
mine.
is ever mine.
Heading for heaven, sins all forgiven, I can't repine.
I cannot repine.
There is such gladness and there's no sadness, glory light shines.
Forever shine.
Singing and shouting, never more doubting, love so divine.
Love is so divine.
Marching with winners, calling the sinners, Jesus is
Jesus
mine.
now is mine.
I have been given treasures in heaven, I'll not repine.
I shall not repine.
Homeward I'm going, happy in knowing Jesus is
He
mine.
is ever mine. Someday my labors will be over, and I will reach that happy strand, where with my friends and loved ones I on manna will dine. I will forget my earthly trials as I join in that heavenly band, singing and shouting on that shore where Jesus is mine.
Shouting and
Praising,
voices upraising, glory divine.
Joy that's so divine.
Going to glory, telling the story, Jesus is
He
mine.
is ever mine.
Heading for heaven, sins all forgiven, I can't repine.
I cannot repine.
There is such gladness and there's no sadness, glory light
forever
shines.
shine.
Singing and shouting, never more doubting, love so divine.
Love is so divine.
Marching with winners, calling the sinners, Jesus is mine.
Jesus now is mine.
I have been given treasures in heaven, I'll not repine.
I shall not repine.
Homeward I'm going, happy in knowing Jesus is mine.
He is ever mine. Well, I woke up this morning feeling fine. I woke up with heaven on my mind. I woke up with joy in my soul, 'cause I knew my Lord had control. Well, I knew I was walking in the light, 'cause I'd been on my knees in the night. And I prayed till the Lord gave me sight, and now I'm feeling mighty fine. Well, I'm feeling mighty fine. Yes, I'm feeling fine. I've got heaven on my mind, heaven on my mind. Oh, I want to go.
I want to go.
Yes, I want to go.
Where the
Milk and honey flow. Milk and honey flow.
There's a
Light that always shines. Light that always shines.
Down
In this heart of mine.
this heart of
In this heart of mine.
I've got
heaven on my mind.
heaven on my mind.
Heaven on my mind.
And I'm
Feeling mighty fine.
mighty
Yes, I'm feeling
fine.
fine. I've been walking with Jesus all the time. We're walking and talking as we climb. We're traveling the road to the sky, where I know I'll live when I die. He's been telling me all about that land, and he tells me that everything is grand. And he says that a home will be mine, and now I'm feeling mighty fine.
Well, I'm
Feeling mighty fine.
mighty fine.
Yes, I'm feeling fine.
I've got heaven
on my mind. Heaven on my mind.
Don't you know?
Oh, I want to go.
I want to go.
Yes, I want to go.
Where the
Milk and honey flow.
Milk and honey flow.
Milk and honey flow.
There's a
Light that always shines. Light that always shines.
down inside.
In this heart of mine.
This heart of
In this heart of mine.
I've got heaven
on my mind.
Heaven on my
Heaven on my
mind.
mind.
And I'm
Feeling mighty fine.
feeling mighty fine.
Yes, I'm feeling fine. Why don't you swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride. Swing down, chariot, stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, calm and easy. I've got a home on the other side. Why don't you swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride. Swing down, chariot, stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, calm and easy. I've got a home on the other side.
Won't you swing down, chariot? Won't you swing down, chariot? Won't you swing down,
Well,
chariot? Won't you
well,
swing down, chariot?
well,
Won't you swing down, chariot?
Well, Ezekiel walked out in the middle of the field. He saw an angel working on a chariot's wheel. He wasn't so particular about the chariot's wheel. He just wanted to see how the chariot would feel. Why don't you swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride. Swing down, chariot, stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, calm and easy. I've got a home on the other side. Why don't you swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride. Swing down, chariot, stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, calm and easy. I've got a home on the other side.
Won't you swing down, chariot? Won't you swing down, chariot? Won't you swing down, chariot?
Well, Ezekiel walked out and he got on board. The chariot went up bumping on down the road. He wasn't so particular about the bumping of the road. He just wanted to lay down his heavy load. Why don't you swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride. Swing down, chariot, stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, calm and easy. I've got a home on the other side. Why don't you swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride. Swing down, chariot, stop and let me ride. Rock me, Lord, calm and easy. I've got a home on the other side. Well, I've got a father in the promised land. I won't be happy till I take his hand. Rock me, Lord, calm and easy. I've got a home on the other side. I've got a home on the other side.
There's a little pine log cabin waiting down in Welcome Valley. There's an open door, and when my Romans soar, I'm going back home. There's a mother daily praying waiting for my homeward straying, to the little pine log cabin nevermore to roam. I want to see the children playing by the weeping willow straying, hear my mother softly praying while the mockingbirds sing so sweetly. How my weary heart is yearning just to be again returning to the little.
I was going to wear my $8.95 mask that I bought for the Murray State Bookstore. And I just thought better of it because Jack would say, "John, these are free. So just pick you up one." So I did. Welcome to this memorial service for Dr. Jack Rose. I hope you don't feel that you should have brought your lunch and maybe your supper with this many people on the stage. Janice is the organized one in the family, and she's told us all how long we can talk, and we think she did a good job of it. In just a moment, Andy, Jack and Janice's younger son, will be saying a few words on behalf of the family. Following Andy, Johnny Bohannon, who was with Jack for many years in the Callaway County school system, will be speaking. Following Johnny Bohannon, Phil Schooley, who was very much a part of Jack's life at Murray State. He's a staff regent. He is has been in charge of the student teaching for the education department at Murray State. And following Phil Schooley, Bob Rogers, who is mayor of Murray and who was the superintendent of the Murray Independent School District, will be our speaker. By the way, Jack backed Bob for mayor, in case you want to know. Stephen Hunter will be next, and he is the minister here at Glendale, pulpit minister. And he will be speaking to us regarding Jack's civic and religious organizations. And then after Stephen, I will have a brief announcement and a closing prayer, and then we will go in the motorcade as you may want to, or however that may work out. We'll meet at City Cemetery for the committal service. Gary Evans will be responsible for that. Andy.
Good morning. My name is Andy Rose, or so I've been told. I grew up mostly being called Jack Rose's boy. I think that may be my legal name, I'm not sure. I've never formally checked. But I'm here as Jack Rose's boy today to speak on behalf of the family and to let you know how grateful we all are for the outpouring of support that we've had in the past month. All of the cards and the food, the visits, the calls, it's all meant so much to us. Not only from the people that we know, but people who I didn't even know knew my dad. There have been some friends of mine who were mentored by my dad, and I didn't even know that until they told me after he died. And I've really appreciated getting an opportunity to hear about the way he's touched people. I appreciate all of you who've been able to come here today, those of you who are watching elsewhere. And thank you also to the members of the leadership at Glendale Road who've been able to make this happen today in difficult circumstances. My dad loved Murray, Kentucky. This was not just a hometown to him. Murray, Kentucky was his home. It's not just land and buildings and a place on the map. Murray is the people of this community. And when he loved Murray, he loved all of you. That's the reason he loved this community. And when my dad was away from Murray, he would tell people about Murray. That was in most of his conversations. He would be happy to tell anyone from out of town all about Murray, Kentucky, because he loved this community so much and worked very hard for it. And that's why when he saw you in the grocery store or in the post office or a restaurant or a sidewalk or a gas pump, he would say hi to you because he wanted to connect with everybody he saw. And I can tell you, as soon as he got home from running errands, the first thing he would tell us was everybody he had spoken to when he was out, and it would be a long list. Some of those conversations were long because my dad liked to tell stories. He liked to tell a lot of stories. And I've been amazed by the fact that in hearing from some of you after his death, there are stories I hadn't even heard yet. I thought I'd heard them all, because Dad thought if a story was worth telling once, it was worth telling once a month or more. And it means a lot to me now to have those stories to remember him by and to have the stories I've been hearing from you. My mother has asked the speakers today to each tell a story about my dad, because that's what would be meaningful to him. And in his honor, those stories are going to be brief, they're going to be funny, and they're going to be at least 80% true. So thank you to all of those who have agreed to speak today, and again, our immense gratitude from all of the family to this entire community. He loved you all so much, and we're grateful that you've loved him back.
Don't you hate to follow such an eloquent speaker? Good job, Andy. I'm going to tell some stories about when Jack was at Callaway and a few of the things that I was involved with him and we did. So some are a little comical maybe, and some are, they're all true. I first met Dr. Jack Rose officially as my boss the day after he was elected superintendent of Callaway County Schools. That was in 1976. The board members, several of them, brought him to each of the schools to introduce him. I was, of course, the principal at North Callaway, and they brought him there to meet the staff and the kids and so on. I knew him a little bit before that, through church and other things, but that was my first official meeting. The first year ended, and he asked some of the principals if they would like to apply for a position in the central office. I did apply, and I was assigned the supervisor of instruction for Callaway County Schools. Charlie Laster was director of pupil personnel at that time. So Charlie and I dealt with him quite a bit. There were many times that Dr. Rose would call Charlie and myself into his office to discuss a decision he was about to make. Well, most of the time we agreed with those decisions, but sometimes we thought he ought to be a little cautious on some of those. So we'd try to talk him around that in a different way of going about it. Sometimes it worked, most of the time it didn't. So then we would call Dr. Nancy Lovett and say, you go in and talk to him. She had a little bit more influence, seemed like, than we did. So sometimes it would work with her, sometimes it would not. he expected everyone on the staff to carry their load and to do it right. He quickly learned how to deal with the State Department. You call them up, make an appointment, and show up early. Some of those trips that I made with him, 4 o'clock in the morning, we'd go up, try to get the business done, return the same day. So he would call to get an appointment. And many times it was about the plans of a new building or something. And so he had found out also that the way to deal with them is you get your plans, you get everything prepared, take them with you, and walk them through that day. And many times that's the way it happened in some of these buildings that were built at Callaway County campus. One of the trips, Charlie Laster and I were with him. So we were driving, and I think I was under the wheel at that time. So Charlie said, don't you think we need to stop at Beaver Dam to get some gas? Jack said, no, we'll make it to E-Town. We didn't. So Jack and I got out of the car, crawled over the fence, climbed up the overpass, and went down to a farmer's house and borrowed some gas, and then made our way on to Frankfort. Many of those trips were, as I said, to get the plans developed and to get them approved, which he did. One of the smart things he did also was to hire Dr. Nancy Lovett from the State Department of Special Education. He hired her as our special education director for Callaway County Schools and grant writer. That's when money started flowing into the Callaway County school districts. Another one of the trips that he made was going to be spending overnight. So he was going to stay with our state representative from Callaway County. Well, to tell you a little bit about our state representative, he was colorblind. His wife, state representative's wife, prepared his clothing for him each day to the right color tie, shirt, and suit. Well, you know Jack was kind of a prankster. He changed everything. So the next morning when the representative got up, put his clothes on, he thought he was getting just to ride everything. Well, he got to work, nothing was right. Everything was changed. The tie didn't match, the shirt didn't match, the suit didn't match. But when they got home, that representative's little redhead got a hold of Jack and told him what's what. That never happened again. There was going to be a board meeting that Jack was going to make recommendations for teachers for that year. Well, throughout the recommendations, the board wasn't necessarily going along with those recommendations. So Jack stopped, closed that book, said, that's all my recommendations. We'll start school with a low number of teachers. And the board meeting concluded. It was a later date that things were worked out. There was going to be a school board meeting in Louisville, and the Callaway County Board was going. Well, we met at the board office. Everybody got into a car. I was driving one of the cars. Jack was driving the other one. So we got in our cars. My car filled up first. Then there was a new board member, T.C. Hargrove, Bob, that came out kind of last. Well, he got in Dr. Rose's car. When we got to Beaver Dam, he came running over to my car and talking to the board members, said, I know why you guys got in this car. He scared me to death. Said he would turn around and talk to the people in back and run off the road. So from then on, Mr. Hargrove was the first one in my car. One trip that Dr. Rose was going to Frankfort, he didn't make it. He went to sleep, ran off the road, and wrecked the car pretty bad and bunged him up a little bit. So a few months later after that incident, well, myself, Dr. Lovett, Cindy Jones, and Dr. Rose were going to a meeting in Frankfurt. Well, Dr. Rose noticed that the ladies in the back seats were really watching his eyes to make sure he didn't go to sleep. So he saw him watching, and he closed one eye and kind of nodded his head, scared them to death. He was almost running off the road, but it was on purpose. Many people thought Jack was cheap. He wasn't cheap. He was frugal with his own money and the Callaway County Schools' money. He didn't care if he stepped on my toes or your toes. It was the right thing to do. He was honest and true, and that made him a great leader and someone that got things done for Callaway County. Thank you.
I was hoping we could keep the mask on so you wouldn't understand what I was saying, but they made me take it off. So, it is, and Andy, you put a lot of pressure on us right now with this. It is my honor and privilege to be able to talk today about Jack. As anyone knows me is aware, and all of you here will soon know, I am not a public speaker. That being said, I would like to talk with you about our mutual friend, Jack Rose. Jack and I served on the Murray State Board of Regents together. He is faculty regent, I as staff. We both shared a deep love and appreciation for Murray State, for which our friendship grew. We worked together well. We could talk about any and everything that even if we disagreed on, and we didn't have any hard feelings. If I or my family ever needed a helping hand, he and Janice were always there to extend an offer to help. We understood each other, a brand of humor, and enjoyed our laughs together. We both understood that a laugh or two always eased a situation. Everyone here has a Jack Rose story. I have countless stories and memories of Jack. One that always comes to mind when thinking about Jack is an MSU trip to Frankfurt. And when Jack, Jeremiah Johnson and I attended, with Jack and Jeremiah and I were serving as regents at that time. We were running a few minutes behind schedule on our way up there. I was driving. I did not stop at Beaver Dam. Jack said, "Schoolie, you know you didn't stop at Beaver Dam. Everybody stops at Beaver Dam. It's un-American not to stop at Beaver Dam." A little side note here, I think he was wanting the free popcorn. After I passed up the next stop, he said that he needed to use the restroom. And when we got to Elizabethtown, Jack said he would buy lunch if we'd stop, and we didn't even have to look for a Burger King or a place that he had coupons. And we had ice cream for dessert. And another student regent, Clint Combs, knows what I mean about Burger King, because we met there regularly. Jack served Murray State well. He was a professor who cared for and guided his students. He served as a dean, and as I have said, he served as faculty regent. He served on numerous MSU committees, including search committees, and served as chair of many of these committees. Jack and Janice always supported the university with both their attendance at Murray State activities and their donations. They established the Jack and Janice Rose Honorary Scholarship at Murray State in 2013, and most recently they were initiated the Racer One statue and Dr. John W. Carr statue projects helped them to become a reality. We all are thankful that Jack was able to attend the dedication of those two statues. There is no way to summarize all that Jack embodied. He's a mentor to me and many of his students and co-workers. He was a loyal and kind friend who was always willing to help. He was my buddy. I'll miss him at MSU activities and in my daily life. I will miss our laughs, our conversations. There will never be another like him. We thank the Lord for the blessings of having Jack in our lives. Well done, good and faithful servant. Rest in peace until we meet again.
Good morning. As Andy said, Jack loved Murray, Kentucky. I'll offer a few comments today as I represent the city of Murray, Kentucky. Of Jack's 77 years on this earth, all but 3 or 4 of those were spent in Murray, Kentucky. Born and reared in a converted schoolhouse just down the street from the current city hall, Jackie Rose grew up. Jackie Rose attended all 12 years of school on the corner of 8th and Main, where the Murray Middle School now sits. Jackie Rose graduated from Murray High and Murray State. Murray was a big part of his life. I was told the story about when Jackie was a young teenager. He wanted to have a paper route. He wanted to sell papers, but he didn't have a bicycle. So he went to work at a local root beer restaurant as a car hop. And he worked at a church as a custodian, and he worked at a couple of grocery stores, and he saved his money, and he bought a bicycle. And as I've gotten to know Jack over the years, that saving money and frugality seemed to stick with him. Most everybody that had a story about Jack had to do with something about his frugality, whether it be the coupons that he seemed to use regularly, whether it be taking sandwiches that are left over from a meeting, or even up into his last days, when Janet said the week after surgery, he wasn't completely alert, but one of the nurses came in and was doing some type of a procedure on him, and Jack turned to the nurse and said, "Is this free?" Even until the week before he passed away, Jack was always looking. Because when you grow up in a home with a dad who's unable to work and dies when you're 12 years old, and a mom who works 3 jobs to pay the bills, and when you see that mom at one of her jobs in the school lunchroom, you know the meaning of money and you appreciate it. And Jack always watched his money. Jack was known for his frugality, but he was also known for his courage and, quite honestly, for controversy. Jack never backed down to controversy. In fact, sometimes he seemed to seek it out. During his time as mayor, when he took over and the city was as I understand it, struggling financially, Jack looked for a new revenue stream. After studying it, all the opportunities, they decided, they being some of the council members and Jack, decided that a payroll tax was the route to go. Very controversial. When it's 6-6 and the mayor has to break the tie, it's controversial. But nevertheless, if he thought that was the right thing for Murray, that's the route he went. That's the route he went on the smoking ordinance. No smoking in our restaurants and so forth. They were controversial, but he didn't back down. If he thought it was the right thing to do, he went after it. And so on behalf of the city of Murray, family, let me thank you for sharing him, for sharing your dad, for sharing your husband, for sharing your grandfather, so that he could provide his courageous leadership to the citizens of Murray, a town that he loved. Thank you.
As a bow tie aficionado, Jack would often tell me that he used to wear bow ties himself. And he actually told me about this one that he had that was velvet, and it was, I guess, yellow, gold of some sort. And I tried to get him to wear it to church, but he never would do it. However, earlier this week, Janice gifted it to me as a token of our friendship along with others, and I thank you very much for that. And that is why I'm wearing it today. It's not to look silly if some people think I'm trying to joke. However, I will confess it probably was a lot more proportional with his 6'5" frame versus my 5'10" frame. Nevertheless, I love Jack a lot and came to be friends with him, and it was quite funny because our love language was trading insults of a friendly nature, if you will. And I would give a jab, and he would give a jab, and sometimes we never knew who quite won, but we rather enjoyed it. But one day, he had visited me, and he was telling me about his life, how he grew up. And to somewhat build upon what Mayor just said, he did grow up poor. And he would tell me how he and his mother worked at the church to clean the church, not this one, but 7th and Poplar, and they would clean it to help provide income. And he told me that one of the persons he most admired was their preacher. And he was telling me, he said, I really wanted to be a preacher. I aimed to go to school to become a preacher, but alas, he was unable to pay the tuition that the schools required. And as he was telling me this, I said, well, Jack, did it turn out all right for you? And he and I both just had a good chuckle. But I would say for a man who was an educator, a superintendent, dean of a school of education, as well as the mayor of the city, I'd say things turned out pretty well for him. But he and I, as Janice and he would come into church, she always led the way, and he was shortly behind. And sometimes I'd say to her, that guy's still following you, isn't he? And she'd say, yes, he is. He just won't give it up. So, and he'd come over, and sometimes we would chew the fat about what was happening and just tell stories. And what I always found rather amusing was how he would introduce Janice. He'd say, this is the luckiest woman alive, or the luckiest woman on the face of earth, because she was married to him. That's what he was meaning by it. But on one occasion, he told me that one particular fella had the best comeback ever to that statement. And so I said, well, you have to tell me what it is. And he said, she is the most fortunate woman alive on the face of the earth, because everyone that knows that she's married to you is praying for her, and nobody has that many people praying for him in the city of Murray, at least. And so that got turned around on him. But here in church, there's a lot of good that he did, not to have his horn tooted or for public recognition. He and Janice both have been very kind and generous to help wherever help was needed, to give assistance wherever assistance was needed. Because as someone who grew up poor, he knew what that was like. And if he could help anyone who was in need. He definitely wanted to bring them relief. But as it turns from the church to the civic organization side, he and I were both members of the Murray Rotary Club, and one particular year when we went to Callaway at the Capitol, he was still mayor at the time, and I hadn't been here but a year and a half or two, and several of these appointees in the Bevan administration came to talk, and as you might imagine, they wanted to talk about how good things were. But I love that when it came to the Q&A part, Jack was there representing Murray, and he was holding their feet to the fire, asking them questions and demanding what he believed Murray deserved. And afterwards, I was like, I liked him before, but I really like him now. As Bob said, he didn't mind controversy, and sometimes he even would seek after it. But it was good to see someone who didn't care who he was speaking with, but discharged his duty as an elected official at a certain locale to advocate as he did, even if it hurt feelings or stepped on toes. He had a job to do, and he wanted to do it to the best of his ability. At the Rotary Club, in our meetings, we had what's kind of a sergeant-at-arms moment where the sergeant-at-arms gets up and would acknowledge folks with birthdays and also find people who had been in the paper that week. You give $1 for each time you're mentioned, and also ask for happy dollars at the end. Now, when I was sergeant-at-arms, I've treated it more like a Don Rickles roast. So if you were familiar with the late comedian Don Rickles and his roast that he would do, that's about how I would do it. So anytime somebody was mentioned in the paper, I would call their name and I'd have some smart aleck remark to go with it, all in good fun, mind you. And on one particular occasion, for whatever reason, Jack had a very busy week, and he was in that paper about 7 or 8 times, I think. And of course, every time I called his name, I had something wise to crack at his expense. And we'd all laugh, and then we come to the happy dollar portion. And so people would give a happy dollar for whatever reason in their life. Maybe they're a new grandparent, or maybe there's an event coming up they wanted to advertise. And so we get to the last of it, and when no one else offers the happy dollar, usually you have a closer. And I always tried to close with something funny. Well, I closed with my funny, and then Jack real quickly raised his hand and had some money. I said, "Oh, Jack." And he stood up. He said, "I do have 10 happy dollars that I want to offer." And I said, "Oh, okay, go right ahead." He said, "This is for the fact that I'm happy that you're finally done and sitting down." And so with that in mind, I will be done, and I will sit down. To Janice, to Andy, to John, to your wives and children, to the Herndons, our deep felt condolences and sympathies at your loss. But as was said, we thank you for sharing such a wonderful man with us, and we thank you for all that he did and for what he meant to you and to this community.
What I would really like to do now is to open it up for everybody to tell stories, but we're not going to do that. That's dangerous. What I would like to say in closing today, although we could never cover everything that could be said, when history is written, when all the dust is settled, and when generations following us are reading the history of Murray and Callaway County, of Murray State University, the Callaway County school system in particular, what Jack Rose has done will be monumental in the development and the enhancement of the quality of life for this community. And as Phil mentioned the passage from the Bible, and I close with it, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy of the Lord." And I would say to Janice, I know, and many others of us do too, that you were the strength behind the giant. God bless you. And to John and Andy, you have brought joy to your parents in ways that cannot be measured. God bless you and your families. Would you bow with me for prayer? Our Father in heaven, we thank you that you allow us to share time and life with people who love us and people whom we love. Today especially, we thank you for Jack Rose and for all the things that he has said and done that will have brought glory to your name and would have endeared him to all of us and to the many others in this community who cannot be here today. Thank you for every good word that he spoke, for every good deed that he did, for all the good influence that his life has already exerted and will continue to exert even in the lives of generations yet unborn. Deepen every impression for good that he's made in all of our lives. Bless his precious family to find comfort and strength. And may we all move forward, having shared the torch with this good man for a while, and now having had it passed to us by him, may we carry that torch honorably, serve in ways that will bring you the most praise and will be best for the community in which we live and the community we claim to love. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen. After different ones have gone to some different places around at the stadium or wherever you would like to go to meet with, to wave at least to the family. We cannot have visitation, of course, as we normally do. Then make your way to the city cemetery. And there, Gary Evans will have the committal service. And we can be distanced where we should be there and still cannot have visitation. But let's remember the one in whose honor and memory we've met today. And let's determine to make this a better and better community and build upon the foundation that Jack Rose has left for us. The family will be dismissed first, and then the gentleman from the funeral home will dismiss the rest of the assembly, and we'll go to our cars then.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace hath brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first